We should be live right now. So, hi everyone, and
Emil, you
welcome.
look you look more live than usual. I can agree to the live section.
So, yeah, it's definitely due to the fact that we did not do it for a very long time. I think that the last office hours was like, I don't know, 3, 4 months ago. So it's kind of crazy how the time is flying by. How you been up to? What you been up to, Dima? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I had my birthday last week, but we actually have another birthday here on the channel, and today is Nikolai's birthday, so we can do a happy birthday song. I won't sing because I don't want to scare all of our community members away. But happy birthday, Nikolai!
Happy birthday,
Thank
man.
you. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
Nikolai,
very much.
what happened? Like, and I'm going to hint what happened during the recent 3 months that we've been out.
Yeah, it's been
Well,
been quite a lot of fun and exciting things. Also, we'll be sharing some of them right here. And we've been working on some really cool stuff, which was kind of behind the curtain for a little bit, and we started to roll it out gradually, which is Project Echo. I think that you've mentioned. So we will be kind of going a bit more in depth during this session here.
Absolutely. So we're going to start like to do a quick recap where we're going to go over what happened and what we released in the most recent releases, and then most of this stream and this time is going to be dedicated to actually demo the Echo SDK and how it works, and of course, time for questions and like everything else that you guys would like to ask us. So yeah, Dima, the screen is yours. Go ahead.
Yes, fantastic. So what we will do is we will go over the version 24 release updates, and as you have seen here, the beautiful GIF we have made by our one and only Prosper, who is not here, but I have a new update. Um, so I will touch briefly some of the key things that has been part of it, and I think one of the biggest one was the translation management functionality, and we've been doing some fine tunes and final touchings. Part of it is also we kind of went and rethought about the whole preview functionality of the different channels, and kind of prior to that it was a bit more cumbersome, and I will let Nikolai soon share kind of a bit more of the behind the scenes and kind of thinking behind how it was. So I will be sharing here kind of a few of the screenshots. You can already see them deployed, I think, in the latest 24 version, so you can actually see how it looks like for all of the channels. And Nikolai, maybe you want to give kind of behind the scenes of kind of what led us to this change and what we're trying to achieve with it.
yeah, sure. So the main idea was to previously, as you remember, we didn't have a preview on the workflow. So you you would need to make multiple clicks to go inside each of the step and review what's going on in the final message. Sometimes it even takes you multiple clicks to review it. And we decided to simplify and streamline user experience regarding to that. So we want our users to just literally understand on the fly what step sends what information. So you can click between different steps and you will see the final result, the final message that you will receive, the subscriber receive
Dima, can you
from that
wait a
step.
second, Nikolai? Dima, can
Yeah,
you
sure.
zoom in just a bit?
Yeah, I'll try it in. Let's try it like this.
Yeah, let's let's go with that. All right, Nikolai, continue, man.
Yeah, a couple of more words on that. So we've been working on a translation management project, and we wanted our users to be able to not just to see the content of each of the step, but to be able to see the different translations of the final messages. And we were thinking what the best way to introduce the message for the user. So we decided to introduce it in the UI. You click on the step and you see the preview of the final message, and you can click on the drop down and you can choose any of the messages you provide translation for. So you will be able to see the different translation or different language for each of the messages. That's kind of overall. I can talk about it forever, for a long time, yeah, even forever. But yeah, let's not take all of the time of the stream. Dima,
Yeah,
the stage is yours.
thank you, Nikolai.
Thank you, Nikolai. And just kind of some of other, kind of a few other UX improvements we've done. We've revamped a bit and trying to standardize the way we are doing pagination within the platform, adding the ability to search workflows by the trigger or by the workflow name. So with some of our users who have quite a lot of workflows, to kind of trying to help them finding those much more easier. There's been quite a huge list of other bug improvements, small changes that are happening around the topics, around subscriber management. It's been quite a lot of things happening behind the scenes. So you can see the whole basically release notes available on our GitHub. And also we had some really cool contributions from two contributors, Kelvis Gamma and Mason D. We had, I think, a Ring Central provider. And we also had some improvements in the activity feed and showing the subscriber details as part of the execution flow. So you could actually use it to filter some notifications based out of it, which was, I thought it was quite cool. And yeah, we had, I think, around 13 or 14 contributors as part of this release. So really exciting. It was laying down to kind of starting to standardize a bit better the user interface. And since Nikolai has joined, he's been pushing us for consistency. We've been, started as eager developers trying to solve this problem, making a lot of mess along the way. And Nikolai is trying to make sure that we are consistent across screens, across the user experience here. And that was kind of one of the first legs towards it. We're also working on improving the actual layout and the information structure inside of the main layout of the application. So we'll be rolling some of those updates quite soon as well. So stay tuned. I think we should have already some things available in V25 quite soon. So that's about version 24 release. What we can do right now is kind of go a bit more in depth into some of the things we have been kind of playing around with in the last couple of months. And I'm really excited to share kind of the first time we're doing this sort of demo outside of our private group of early adopters and early users who've been playing with this for quite a while now. But one of the kind of more requested features on our roadmap was the ability to define and kind of connect a bit better to the GitOps and kind of notifications as code paradigm, similarly to what you would do with Terraform and Pulumi for your infrastructure code, but for notifications. So you can test them, you can control them in a better way, but also integrating with so many tools and frameworks that are available out there, like React Email, like MGML, like any of the other delivery and content creation providers. But not only that, with maybe some, like actually running code, hydrating data, and basically being able to execute real code, as opposed to just being limited over the user interface and what you can do with it. And as we grew, the use cases with Novu came much bigger and much more diverse. And it was apparent to us that developers kind of request more flexibility, request more customization paths. And this is basically after a few initial ideation phases with a few users and customers, we kind of landed up on Project Echo. And what we can do right now is I will give a bit of a brief overview of what Echo is. And Echo essentially is defining your workflows in code, right? So you can see here a small example of how you would define a workflow. And we can go over it together right now and see kind of how it's very similar to what you already know today from within the system, but it's also completely new and opens basically a new way of possibilities within Novu. Now, the workflow definition basically happening as part of your code base, right? So here we have an example of a workflow that's called comment on a post. We have here the trigger identifier, right? Which is the actual workflow ID we already have today inside of the platform. And then we have different steps, right? So we have an in-app step and we want to send an in-app message. We have a digest. We want to wait for 1 week. And then we want to send an email, but we might want to skip it because the first message was actually already seen. So this is basically all the step definitions we already have in the platform, but now you have actual flexibility of writing your own custom code as part of it. Now, how this whole thing works, right? So we are doing here, like we're waiting for something for 1 week. How it's possible? We're not really waiting in this function, for a week because your server might restart. And how do we actually ensure durability of those steps? So the way Echo works is that the whole state management is managed by our worker engine and an API. So Novu actually knows and remembers the state of each of those items here, and it actually can replay and retry specific tests if it failed. And it can also schedule a message for a week from now, let's say, or a couple of hours from now. So your function code or servers is basically a stateless machine here, and Novu actually responsible to managing all of the complexities behind scheduling, digesting events, doing all of those things. And then on the other hand, you actually get to basically just write a declarative code and say, hey, I want to send an in-app. And Novu will actually take care of the fan out. It will take care of the user preferences. It will take care of all of the complexity behind it. Now, the way it works is what we will do right now is I will do a live demo. And as with all live demos, I hope I won't have a lot of bugs in my code with all the pressure on me. But basically, we're going to look an example of how you can create your first workflow, how you can sync it to Novu, how it will operate. And if anyone from the audience have any questions or something is not clear during the actual demo, please feel free to just write your questions and I will address them as I go. And if I miss them in the chat, Emil can help me.
Absolutely, I'm here, man.
He's already done it twice and it was so slick. No one ever even noticed about it. Quite good skills. All right. So with Novu Echo, we are introducing 2 new components to Novu. The first one is the local dev studio. Which
make sure to just make your screen a bit bigger, like
yes,
120% or something. Yeah.
Yeah, actually can do it, I think, like this.
Yes, amazing.
Perfect. So you can see that the local dev studio is basically a studio that runs on your local machine. You can see that this is running on my local host. So meaning the dev studio is not running on the cloud or it's not running on some remote service. It's actually running on your own computer. The way to kickstart the whole process is basically running npx Novu Labs latest and then echo. What this command will do, it will open you this screen. And this screen will actually be telling you all of the things we need to do to create our flow. So I will go here with the manual path just so I can explain kind of behind the scenes how it all works. We have also an automatic, and this is a create echo app, which will basically set up everything up for you. But I want to take the harder path so we can go over through all of the different stages and you can try it on. This whole thing is actually already live and out. You can go to our docs and maybe somebody can post it from our team on the chat. So you can actually go here and after the session or together with me, you can actually run it and see how it works. So the very first thing we're going to do, I'm actually going to open my IDE. So I have here some test environment with an API key. So we're not, don't go wild. It's going to be deleted after. So I created some like a sandbox for our application here. And you can see that this is actually my code base, right? So this is an IDE. I use JetBrains. I just can't, I know everybody, it's not cool anymore and everybody is using it, but I can't help it. I love my debugger and some habits. So what we have done here, we have actually defined a new instance of Echo. Currently, Echo only supports TypeScript definitions. We will be releasing other languages support for now, but at the moment we are focused around TypeScript support, and this is working with your Express, it's working with Akoa, it's working with any basically service, Node.js based service application that is possible. I'm going to do an example with Next.js during this presentation. So you can actually see that this is a typical Next.js application with a .next folder, and I have just created a new file here called the Echo client following the guide here. So we are importing the Echo SDK, and we can see that basically nothing is happened here in the local dev studio because, well, I actually haven't created any workflow yet, right? So I have prepared here a small snippet of a simple workflow definition that basically has an email step, and the email is sending a subject and a body. I will save it. I will go back here, and we actually can see that the workflow has appeared, right? So we can actually see that we have this new Hello World application here. If I will go here and I will do a Hello World stream, we can actually see that it was auto-updated, and we can see the latest value as part of this. Now, how it all works. We have the only requirement from Echo is basically exposing a single endpoint to Novu, right? So here in my example, I'm using Next.js. So we are basically exposing a very simple serverless function from Next.js, and we are exposing a get, a post, and a put. We're having a multiple basically library wrappers around Echo, so you can just use any of the existing ones. But if we're lacking a specific library, the implementation is quite simple. So this is just a simple route handler basically behind the scenes. So you can look at Echo as basically a way of a webhook listener that runs in your application, in your code base. It has access to all of your local information, like your database. You can basically run your own code with it. And the way that Novu communicates is via this HTTP endpoint. So when I have defined this workflow in order for our workflow engine to be able to access it, we will be communicating with this HTTP endpoint. And this HTTP endpoint is actually protected by an HMAC encryption. So we can make sure that the person who is calling this endpoint is actually Novu and not some other actor trying to access it. So we have created our very first workflow. Let's see how it looks like. And again, this is everything happening currently locally on my machine. So let me click on it and let's see what else we can do with it. So we can see that basically we have the actual, very similar to what you might be already familiar with in the Novu cloud platform, but it's currently running on your local machine. So let's say I want to see what is the send email and how this email looks like, right? So we can actually preview and see the content of it. So I will be clicking on it. And what we're actually seeing here on the screen, this is a preview of the email, right? So we can see here we have this. This is an email subject, and this is the email body. This is identical to what I have just put. I can also see the code that generated this specific function. So I can see that I have, this is an email subject, and this is a body of hello. Very, 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 creative.
Basic one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can, this works. So basically what happens is that we actually update this in real time, right? So the content reflects my code state, and I haven't pushed anything yet to Git or something like this. It's just my local development environment.
That's crazy.
Now, we have introduced a few interesting concepts as part of Echo. And I think you might be familiar with our ways to define basically the workflow payload, and you can specify if it's a required payload, if it's a required variable, or might it have a default value. And we kind of took it to the next level. So we've introduced two new concepts. The first one is the payload schema. And the payload schema is basically the variable definition of the workflow. So how it works, this is actually a JSON schema, a direct JSON schema. We are currently working to implement wrappers for Zod and AGV and class validators and other validating frameworks you might already use. So we can say something here like a name, right? This is a property, and I will do a type of string, and I can say I have a default value of, let's go with Nikolai because he have a birthday today. When I will save it and I go back, I can actually see that a new input appeared here, right? And we can actually see that Nikolai, the default value that was specified here. I can actually also say, hey, you know what? Let's make it actually a required variable. So we can do something like required, and then we can pass here and we can say the name is required. So when I will go back and I will try to remove Nikolai, and let's say, because we have the default value, so it actually works, but if I will remove it, we can actually see, hey, there is a validation error here. We must have a required property name. So you're getting verbose around actually making sure that you're not missing important information when passing your workflow. So you don't want to get in these scenarios of you're sending a message to millions of users and you're saying hello now, right? Or something embarrassing as this. So we actually can help you protect from those types of mistakes by defining a clear schema, similarly to how you would do with your actual API, right? You want to provide the users of the API the most amount of verbosity to make sure, hey, here's what I have done wrong, and this is what I was expecting to have. Now, let's go back. So we've seen the definition here with the payload schema, which is cool. It's similarly to what we have today, just much more powerful, because I can define types. I can define it's a Boolean. I can do a regex. It must be an email, or it must be a valid URL, or it must be an object ID of some sorts. Now, the second cool concept is we are introducing something called step inputs. And the way to look at it is basically, let's do a simple example here. And I will say we have a type, and then this is again a JSON schema definition. And I will do here another one, let's call name, and I will type here of type string, and I will type here the default is world. Now, let's save it. So we can see we have two types. We have the workflow payload and we have the step inputs. Now, what's the difference between those? The workflow payload is happening during the trigger, right? So when you're making Novu.trigger, this is what you're passing as part of the payload. The input section, you can treat it as variables, right? So basically what happens, you can define a way for a non-technical member, let's say a product manager or somebody else from your team, or just me, as usually I'm trying to be quite lazy. And if I can do something without deploying the code again, I would actually go for it. So inputs allow...
Nikolai can do it.
And also Nikolai.
Nikolai can do it.
For sure. So inputs basically allow you to do and modify any part of your workflow and step without code in a visual manner, right? So let's try to look at this and see what we can do with it. So I can see I'm typing here something, but nothing happens, right? Why is nothing happening? Because I've never actually used this variable. So let's use it, and let's use it as part of the body, so you can see that I tell you the truth. We can actually see that I got IntelliSense here, right? I get autocomplete for those types of variables, and I can, this can help me making sure that I'm not making any mistakes as part of it. So let's use inputs.name. Now let's go back here, and let's say we have Emil on live stream. You can actually see that I'm typing, and this input is regenerated in live. So it's updated as part of we go, and it actually works in real time. We have some flicker to figure out here, and we really want to make it smooth, but we're still work in progress. If anybody have an idea of how to make it really smooth without those flickers, we're up for it. Awesome. So we use those inputs. This is fantastic. But, okay, so we can manipulate anything part of it. We can manipulate content. And we discussed that we also allow you to actually reuse some other content frameworks. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with React Email, which kudos to the recent team. I think they're doing a fantastic job, MGML, or any of the other parts. And I have pre-created here a small example that I'm going to use. And this is basically a function that I have created. Looking at this function, you can see I'm actually using React code to define my email, right? I'm using here Tailwind. This is all coming out from the React email starter guide, so you can take a look at it. So I'm using React. I'm actually using Tailwind, and I have some variables as part of it. And I'm actually, yes?
Can you also kind of mention how users of Novu were trying to execute this or go with React email or with, various design templates before we had this option right now with Echo? Because I know that a lot of people actually try to do a bypass of that and kind of get creative on doing that. But right now it's kind of eliminated in a way.
Yeah, so basically the only way you could actually achieve this is by compiling React email outside and pass it as a variable inside Novu. But then you're losing a lot of the things Novu can inject, right? We can inject a lot of the subscriber information, like the digested events, for example. You can get a list of all the digested items as part of it. So they would lose a lot of the flexibility by doing that. But it was possible just passing a HTML string to Novu and just render it and basically bypass the whole Novu functionality because of that. And this was suboptimal for us because we really wanted to kind of have the best of both worlds, right? Providing this ability, but still having all the features of Novu used there. So I have made a bit of a richer inputs definition here. And you can see I'm using Booleans, I'm using, like a URI formatter here. I'm using default values. I'm using a bit more of a richer inputs. And I'm passing all of those inputs basically to my React component as props, right? So in my React code, what you can actually see that I'm using, some inputs as part of it. Let's go back to Novu Studio. And now we're actually seeing React email or like a Vercel type email here with the design from the example folks from React email. And we also have all of our variables available here on the right side. So this is our JSON schema definition rendered as part of the React email. So again, if I will go and I will change here to, we have Mark here with us on the call. So I can do team Mark as part of the actual email. We can see that what Echo does behind the scenes, it goes to this endpoint, this Novu Echo endpoint I've just mentioned to you. This code actually runs and renders with all of the logic here. And then it basically responds this HTML and we are rendering it here. So this is what actually will be sent to your user, right? Now, we can use inputs and workflow payload to control content, right? So I can modify some content. Let's say I want to, A/B test and a product manager want to change this content slightly. He can do it without code, but we still have the flexibility of having a definition. Let's say, hey, we don't want to have our buttons longer than 60 characters because it will break the whole layout and it will make it look bad, right? You can look at it as basically a storybook or a design system for your notifications. When you have as a developer the flexibility of defining the rules and the things that are safe to change without breaking your mission critical notifications, and you can still allow somebody non-technical to participate as part of the process. But you can do it not only for content, right? You can actually also do it for structural elements. So we have this join the team button. I have here this input that says show a button. I can actually press it and the button goes away, right?
Wow.
So I've hit the button. So I can also control structural elements of the email when doing so, right? Let's take it to a bit more of an advanced example. And I'm doing here some magic with snippets just because I don't want to type it and make typing mistakes in front of all the audience. I've specified this is kind of an idea of what we are planning to do with it. And we are already working with the team and with our broader community to create outside of integrations with third-party systems and third-party tools and other areas. And basically imagine the following scenario. So I have created here a new input. It's of type of array, right? Currently, it can be actually an array of objects with some metadata around them. And I define here default components. I set component 1, component 2, and component 3. Let's go back to our example here. And we can see that we have here 3 components. We have a button component, we have a text component, and we have a line component, right? If you look at the actual definition here, we can see that we have those list of components right now here, right? So I can modify them without code now. I can actually say, hey, I want to move the button or the HR component 1 up, or I can move it 1 down, so you can see it moves here, or I can move the button, to the end of the email, right? This is just an interface around the JSON schema. We are currently actually working on providing you a drag and drop interface, so you can define your component basically with React like you would do with your design system, and then let no-code people just drag and drop components and place them as part of the email, right? So they can modify the color, they can modify the structures, but you're still able to integrate basically even your existing design system items like your design tokens and colors and branding as part of your notification stack right now. Now, I can also say, hey, I actually want to turn all of those components into a button, right? So I just switch the component type here, and imagine it could be like also a drop down with something with the component types you have, and suddenly we have here 3 buttons, and I can potentially remove one of them, right? So there is a lot of flexibility when it comes just to it. I think right now we are trying to do all of the possible content and guides around what you can do with it, because it's quite limitless, really. And we'll be releasing a bit more starter guides and a bit more tutorials about some of the things you can actually do with it. Now,
Here I'm just going to plug that right now we are collecting all the possible feedback that you can provide us with. We have dedicated feedback channel on our Discord, and if you have a question, just tag each of us, and I really believe that we will be there almost right away. But we just want to collect those use cases, what you have in mind to do with this, because as Dima is kind of really sailing through this very smoothly and very casually because he's working with this on a daily basis. But even for me, as someone who saw this a few times already, right now I'm exposed to even more exciting features, and it's really blowing my mind away. So it's a very big deal for us. We are very proud and happy to release this, and we also need you to help us make it even more extraordinary. So just come and shine with us.
yes, thank you, Emil. So up until now, we've only done like a single step here, right? So we have this email step. We can also go a bit more advanced, right? So we can say, hey, I want to do, and this is something we've saw in the previous example here. So let's say we want to send an in-app, and we can already see that ChatGPT is helping us quite a lot already. And we want to send an in-app message, right? So we specify the body here, and the body is actually hello in-app. And one of the interesting things about this approach is because it's just code, steps can also respond, right? So once a step has happened, it also has some response, right? So let's save this response in const in-app response, right? And what happens if I will be checking what's happening here? So I have my IntelliSense. So you can see that actually the in-app response having an interface, I can actually also go, I think, with and actually see the definition of the type it responds. So we have things like in-app.seen, right? Or in-app.read, or when was the last time the user seen this particular notification here, right? So we can use it. And what we can use it for is we can say, hey, I want to actually skip the the email if the in-app response, right, was seen. So we can use the results of previous steps as part of the workflow execution of new steps, right? Another thing we can do is we can send an in-app response, and then we can step dot delay, right? So we can wait for, like a 1 hour, for example, and then do something, right? We can also do a step dot digest. So we can actually collect events here. And let's say we're doing like an amount, and you can see that I'm getting IntelliSense for everything I'm doing, right? So we can get support, and if I'm mistyping something, ChatGPT was not very accurate with this one, but but TypeScript is. So it tells me, hey, there is no such unit as USD, although it would be nice to get $100. So we have let's say we are waiting for 100 seconds or for 1 day, and we can actually get access now to all of the digested events and render them as part of our React email, right? So let's say 100 people liked my photo, so I can actually get access, and I can create very complex templates and emails based on digested events. So that's really cool. Now, let's take it one step back. We have created our beautiful workflow, with all of the things we wanted to do. How do we actually make it work? Because up until now, everything we've just seen here is actually happening on my local computer, right? It's really not that helpful because it works here and we're displaying it, but now we want to deploy this to our dev environment or production environment. Now, how do we do this? We have a sync to the cloud button here, which if I will press it here, it will actually tell me how some of the things that we need to do to actually deploy this thing out. Now, for your production environment, we are actually prepared GitHub Actions you can use to deploy this thing out. Or you can also use our CLI. So you would do npx Novu Labs and sync, and you will do this as part of your CI platform, basically, right? For the local purposes, just for this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a local tunnel to my computer using npx local tunnel, and I'm going just to forward this to my Next.js application, right? So I'm going to my CLI here. I'm going to paste npx local tunnel -- port 3001. And we have this really neat URL that's called neat seals juggle local.lt, which meaning you can all now DDoS my local computer by by visiting this URL. Please don't do it. I don't have a lot of RAM. I have 5 Chrome tabs open. Spare me. And I will post here this echo endpoint URL. So now I will click and I will run create diff basically at this moment. What will happen right now is that Novu Cloud, the actual Novu stateful machine, will actually go and it will look at the current state and it will look at my local state. And I can see, similarly to how we would do this with GitHub, I can see, hey, we previously didn't have any workflows. If you don't believe me, here is my Novu account here. And it's basically a brand new account here. And we have here is my hello world workflow, and I see everything that is changed. If I would only modify the title, I will only see this diff as a hey Dima, you've modified this identifier here. Why it's important is just making sure that you don't deploy something you don't want to. It's similarly to how you would go with Terraform, where you would plan first and then kind of see, okay, I want to pursue it because I'm happy with the results. Now, when I will press sync, we can see that the sync was complete. And if I will actually go to my Novu Cloud interface, we could see that in real time, it actually updated this new workflow it recognized, right? And I can see that it has this new blue icon. This new blue icon actually means that this workflow is actually powered by Echo. We can create another workflow, just as you would do it today with Echo, and it will still work as if it used up until today. So Echo can coexist with your existing workflows, either during a migration period or you just want Echo for only one of your workflows. Now, let's click and see what happens here. So basically what happens here on the screen, we can actually see that we have the existing thing we have today, except of a few minor changes. We actually can't modify some of the configuration metadata here because the source of truth is in the code, right? But we can still see the preview here of the actual email we've just sent. And I can click on the edit message functionality here. And what we basically can see here is the exact same input panel we have from the Dev Studio, but now it's accessible on the Novu Cloud and Novu Web instances, right? So I can again come here and I can say here, Team Emil. So we can see that it now modifies it here. The only difference with the studio, right? And I can also, for example, hide the button as we had it previously. Now the button is gone. Now the only difference is that I can actually go and I can call save inputs, right? What happened right now is that we actually persisted this information in Novu, right? So this will be actually used when we are about to send the notifications, right, to the user. So I am, as a non-technical person, I come here, I say, hey, hide the button, change this text, save. Now we will actually use those inputs as the source of truth. Now, there are a lot of other exciting things about those input kind of configuration because I will keep some excitement happening for some of our next sessions. But we have some really cool things around it, with specifically around user preferences and subscriber preferences, which enable us to do some really, really amazing stuff that we couldn't do today. So now that we have this here, this is actually a React email content. We have some things we can modify without code and without the need to deploy anything. And Novu basically from this point works quite similarly to how you would expect it. It will do whatever it does. It will send the email. It will send the message to the users. We have still the user preferences, all of the functionality you're already familiar with Novu. But now you can really run custom code, right? You can actually query here your database and, get posts. Maybe, 1 week past since the original trigger, you want to hydrate your data. Because this code actually runs in your VPC, you have access to all of your tools, your testing frameworks. You can actually debug a workflow. I can put a debugger here and see what happened, right, as part of the execution of the workflow if I want to.
Can I ask something for clarification?
Yes.
So you said that, for example, if I would like to get the subscriber data from the database,
Yes.
is it connected? It could be connected to my own personal database or to Novu's database, like where subscribers is created.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It actually can be connected to your database because this code actually runs on your Kubernetes, on your Vercel functions, Netlify, your serverless function, or your, Express app. So you have access to here to all of your code. You can install libraries. This is just like this. The example server is basically your code base. It runs in your VPC. So you can actually get access to your database directly instead of syncing Novu. And one of the beautiful things around it is you can actually also specify, I will do a few hints. There is a bit more information on the docs around it, but just kind of another quick cool thing. So if I will go...
We also have a question, one that you might want to address before.
Yeah, sure. I think I see a custom function for in-app messages. Yeah,
so
perfect.
Can we call can we call my custom function if in-app message is seen?
Very good question. And the answer is yes. So this is still not released out, but basically we will be supporting something called step.custom. And this will basically allow you to run your own function as part of it. And we will actually persist and store the response on our backend, and you can reuse it a bit later. So you can define your own custom logic, and you can also skip this function if the in-app was seen, using the exact same interface we saw previously with the skip method. So we currently, in the current version, not yet, but this is going to be rolled out, I believe, in the next week or 2 weeks. So you can run actually custom functions. It can be used for a ton of things. So let's say you want to have a custom integration provider. You want to query your legacy system or legacy like content management system as part of it. So yeah, it could allow you to run basically any custom code you want for calculation, for data fetching, or for delivery even, right? Now, another cool thing we are rolling out with Echo is something we call, Echo in a general is like really providing the ability for you to kind of execute code in the guts of Novu, right? It allows you to run your custom code really in the heart of every part of the Novu execution flow. And we are also extending this to the delivery providers. Now, how it's beneficial. So up until today, Novu actually, for the Slack channels, only allowed you to specify text content, essentially, right? So you could only specify the body, but we didn't support a bit more complex Slack basically messages, right? So what we can do right now here is I can actually specify the Slack specific, I think it's called blocks, if I remember correctly. And let's see what I done wrong.
Meanwhile, if you have any questions, something that you would like us briefly touch, because we are getting to the moment that we will need to wrap up. But still, if you have any questions, you can write them in the tweet thread of this live stream. If you're watching this on x.com, you can write them on YouTube and even on LinkedIn. So we kind of everywhere right now. So if you have questions, make sure to put them, load them off your mind so we could address them and really give you what you want.
Awesome. So I'll just finish this thought here and then we can address some of the other questions we have. So basically with the provider's interface, we're allowing you to inject basically any custom provider-specific configuration as part of your execution. Same thing can go with something like SendGrid, and you can specify, let's say, the AP pool name, right? And this is like a very specific thing to SendGrid. or it might be for FCM or for any of the other delivery providers. So basically, what we allow you to do is having a direct access to the underlying SDKs to utilize as provider-specific functionality that is not captured by the kind of generic form of the provider. So you can really have access to the underlying delivery elements if you want to and if you need to as part of your execution flow. There is a lot of other things into it and a lot of other small enhancements and things we are rolling out with Echo. I highly recommend everyone's here just go to our Echo Quick Start page, and we shared this previously on the comments here. And we have here all of the information. We're updating this continuously and adding more and more integrations as we go. So go deep dive deeper here. We are available also on our Discord channel in case you have some questions or things are not clear. We're still working out on messaging and still working out on making sure that we are covering all of the cases here in the docs. But yeah, I hope it was helpful for anyone who was here, and we're really excited with the team, and we have a lot of other things we're planning kind of and ways to enrich the experience even much better. This is really just kind of the starting point for this. But with us with Novu, kind of we trying to bridge the gap between kind of providing the most amount of flexibility and ability to do some really complex things, but also providing the interface for non-technical people on your team to make sure that we have this communication language. And in the end, JSON schema sounds to be the bridge of and bridging the gap between product managers and developers. I think we found the solution for this. It's called JSON.
We found
schema.
the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any. Right now, not something that I kind of really stumbled upon. Yeah. So fortunately, we don't have, because it's also time. I'm saying fortunately because we don't really have time for questions. But the fact that we also don't have them, it's not really worrying us, because how to reach us, where to find us, Dima, the team. We are on Discord, we are on Twitter, on X. So just reach out, tell us what you think, share with us your use case. If you have something very complex or something that you are not entirely sure that we can cover with that approach, or something that you think that we could do differently, please just let us know, let the community know, so we could all really learn together and push this thing forward. I think the key point here is the flexibility of this. It's Dima, would you like to maybe give just an emphasis on how really flexible this is? Even the workflow management within your code base, it's something that entirely up to you. So do you want to just wrap
We
this up?
actually done some cool experiments internally with the team, starting from using Lunge darkly for running A/B tests for your notifications, or feature flagging your workflows. Basically, we've done some experimentation around using your design tokens from your design system to style your notification emails, for example. We've done some internal experimentation around using other frameworks like Misel and MGML for your email content, and actually also fetching content from HubSpot or from Braze or Customer.io or Intercom, so you can allow your marketing teams to actually write content where they're most comfortable with. And Novu becomes really this glue that kind of connects all of your communication platforms into one place. So you can still write your content with Braze or Customer.io, but Novu actually can, via an integration, fetch this information, use it as part of the execution flow. And again, there is a lot of other cool things we've been playing around and experimenting with, and we'll be rolling out more content as we go soon. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. All right. So I want to thank everyone who came, who participated, who decided to pause their day, what they're doing, to give us their full attention, to watch this live stream here. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate all the contribution that you are doing on a consistent basis, your support, feedback. We're really just we're thankful for all of it. And please just help us nurture those bonds even further. And we have lots of things that we are preparing. One last thing, we should Vipol here wrote in the YouTube chat, we should be able to send emails without adding a subscriber, please.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and you actually can do that with Echo. The way it works currently, so you don't have to basically import any subscribers into Novu with Echo. You can see here I have an example of a trigger as part of this flow here, and the only thing that you need to pass is a subscriber ID as part of your trigger execution. You don't need to pre-create it. You can actually fetch the information of this subscriber right in Echo from your database just in time and use it as the credentials, basically to send the email to someone, or you can use his first name, last name. So basically what Echo allows you to do is kind of bridge the gap, so you're not forced to sync all of your subscribers to use Novu. You can just pass a subscriber ID and then hydrate the data in real time.
So just make sure that there is an alignment for the subscriber ID part. Basically, the subscriber ID can be anything. It's not necessarily something that you that generated by Novu or something that you need to tie the specific user ID from your database. It could be also kind of the email of the person that you are sending it to, or just anything else that will just even slightly will identify the user.
Yeah, and as long as you are able to identify the user based of it later, it's fantastic. Maybe the one last thing, Echo also injects here the actual payload information. It injects here the subscriber information, and it injects here some other properties for you to use, right? The context. So some really cool things around it is Novu actually injects, if you're using our notification center, we are actually also injecting, like, is the subscriber currently online, right? As part of your execution flow. So Novu provides quite a lot of context as part of this workflow. And if you don't want to use any of those context information, you want to fetch them from your database, up to you. It's really kind of the goal around this, and looking specifically at a lot of our bigger customers and organizations, we know that migration is painful and it's not easy to keep the data synced. So basically, you can go with it gradually, adopting the different domains as you go, or you can just use your own data store to fetch them from.
Yeah. Thank you, Dima. And one last thing that I'm going to just plug here is, if you are watching this and maybe you are not necessarily in need to use Novu right now for your use case, or maybe within your company, but you would like to just test it out, build some demo project, maybe create some content around what you could do with such functionality, also, please reach out to us. We will help you create this. We will answer all the questions and also help you amplify what you will create. So just reach out to us. We are very open for this. We are encouraging all the engagement for this and with this. And yeah, that's going to be all. So Dima, do you want to answer this one last thing?
Yeah, let me check. Will it create two users if the user with same email now registers to my app and comes with an actual user ID? Yes. So again, the user ID is unique, but what will happen behind the scenes is you will basically, if the identifier changes, then it will change. The only way around this is you can actually call our API and remove it once the user basically updates, or you can also make an update command for this entity to update this identifier for the user. But yeah, if the ID is different, then basically what will happen, it will just create a new one.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This is going to be the last kind of thank you. We're going to wrap this up. We're a bit over time, but it was a pleasure. We all enjoyed this live presentation. Thank you, Dima. Thank you, Nikolai, for being here, and thank you everyone who participated in the chat and help us in the backstage. And I think, going to see you in 2 weeks once again here.